Hello and welcome again to this edition of Phi TV. I'm your host, Brad Swanson. We are coming to you just a few blocks from Florida's capital during the 2022 Florida legislative session. Today's guest does not necessarily we're not always thinking about her when it comes to legislation, but we always think about her when it comes to historical artifacts of Florida, but more importantly, elections. Laura Lee, Secretary of State, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to get to be here today.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Thank you for coming on. How are things at the Department of State? Well, everything like running like a top?
Well, that's our objective. We work for that every day. So yes, we are doing very well at the department. One of the interesting things about the Department of State is that we have such a diverse set of responsibilities. So oftentimes folks are familiar with our work in elections, but we also are responsible for historical resources, arts and culture, libraries, and the Division of Corporations.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. All right, well, let's start with legislative priorities, and then we'll get into, because you were telling me a little bit about the historical stuff off camera. Let's start first. What are you working on with the legislative session this year?
So one of our key priorities this year relates to election integrity. So election integrity has been a key priority for Governor DeSantis and the Department of State since the inception of his administration. We had a very successful election in 2020, and we want to be sure that we're doing everything necessary to continue that for Florida in years to come. This year in particular, one of the things that we are hoping to see in the legislative session is the creation of an Office of Election Security that would add additional resources and investigators to the department so that when we receive complaints about irregularities or fraud, we have staff in-house who can make sure that we're doing everything we need to do to get to the bottom of those allegations.
And you would think with something so important that this, people probably think that it's already there. There's somebody, with a badge, and I can come down and find, the crime that could have happened with any election, local or statewide or federal. But you're now going, how has this idea been received by the legislature?
Well, so far they seem very receptive. I think that our legislature is also very interested in election integrity and ensuring that Florida continues to be a leader. Right now at the department, we actually don't employ any investigators or law enforcement. So while we receive a lot of information from the public, it'll be a great help to us to have this group to help work on the things that we hear. So, elections for us and successful elections are so much more than what the voter sees on election day. We, along with Florida's supervisors of elections, are working year-round to ensure that we are prepared for elections and that all of the other activities in our state that are related to elections, like petition gatherers for citizen initiative petitions or third-party voter registration organizations, our cyber and physical infrastructure, all of those things come under our responsibilities to ensure that our elections are secure. So these are the types of things that these additional resources would really help us work on.
Now you are working on the cyber and security sort of stuff. What's going on there? I'm assuming it's another ask to the legislature to bolster that up. What's the need and what's going to get solved?
Indeed. So threats to our cyber security continue to be a key priority for us. We like to say that this is a race with no finish line. We absolutely have foreign adversaries who will and do attempt to interfere in our election-related systems. So we do have significant technology-related requests, again, this year for the legislature, so that we can continue to upgrade, modernize, and ensure that we are prepared to meet that evolving threat landscape.
Well, you think about the elections for time eternal, at least in our political lives. Florida was the center of challenges in elections, and we absolutely, I'll say you and the supervisor of elections absolutely nailed the last election. I mean, coming off of that election, I think outsiders and folks that aren't attached to it would say, we're good. Right, because we killed it, but there's always work to be done, right? I mean, let's go back to that election real quick. What were you most proud of with that last election?
Well, I will tell you, our internal goal was we did not want Florida to be in the headlines the day after Election Day. And I am so pleased that in 2020, we succeeded. Our elections were secure, they were timely, we had results on election night, and we're very confident in the security of our election systems. And so we really wanted to make sure that not only were we getting it right, but that we were communicating with the public in a way that would leave them confident in the security of their vote and that their vote was counted. So we also worked really hard last year on public outreach and working with the public to ensure that any questions that they had that we were answering.
Right. So question for you, for the average citizen that wants to go find out about citizens petitions or election stuff, where do they go?
Well, we have a tremendous amount of that information on our website. So I would definitely encourage anyone with questions about any aspect of the elections process to go to our Department of State website. Another thing that I always encourage members of the public to consider is serving as a poll worker.
Right.
It is an incredible way to get a front row seat and learn so much about our elections process and how it works.
Yeah.
So we're working really hard to try to encourage and recruit. Of course, we want all of our existing poll workers to come back, but we hope to see some new faces this year.
Well, I mean, it's literally volunteering. It's one of those great civic duties. It's almost like jury duty, right? Like, but way more fun because you get to see everybody in your
Yes.
precinct and whatnot. Okay, well, let's shift a little bit to some of the work that you're doing in the historical world. It's really one of the most amazing things. Everything from the treasures that get recovered.
Yes.
What's going on the historical side of the department?
So another real priority for us this session relates to the Division of Historical Resources. So the Department of State is responsible for preserving, protecting, and sharing Florida's history with the public. And to do that, we employ a number of archaeologists at the department, terrestrial and underwater, and also conservators. So they find artifacts, conserve them to ensure that they will last for generations to come, and then we share them out with the public. And one of our proposals this year relates to the creation of an artifact curation facility. So we have a collection of over 3.5 million artifacts.
Where do you keep all these?
Exactly.
Are they in the basement?
They're in the basement.
They're in the basement. They're in the
So
basement.
a number of them are out on loan to institutions or on display in our museums here around Tallahassee. But there are others that we would love to be able to have out where the public can see them. We'd also love for the public to be able to see our conservators actually doing their work. What happens when a Native American dugout canoe comes into the department and is restored by our conservators? So we're hoping to create a space where those professionals can work, but that the public can also come in and be part of that process.
Yeah.
So that's a really exciting thing for
Tallahassee?
us.
Would it be a Tallahassee location?
We do. Our proposal is that it be out at the grounds of the Mission San Luis, our Living History Museum here in Tallahassee.
All right, so that's amazing. We're going to need to go a little deeper into that. When you think about the artifacts that Florida recovers, so often it's the treasure that makes the headline, but the Indian artifacts are so intrinsic to who Florida is and who we are. You think about the stuff that got recovered from the Wakulla when the river drained and it literally reset the clock. This all comes to you, correct?
Indeed. So we have one of the most incredible collections of Native American dugout canoes anywhere in the world because Florida's native peoples used our waterways to get around. So our artifacts date all the way back to the Paleo-Indian period and really tell the story of our state's history. The people who lived there, our native people, the Spanish explorers, all the way up through the present day. So it is really remarkable what we can learn about the people who came before us by finding and understanding these artifacts.
So if somebody wants to help the Department of State with this sort of stuff, and you're an archaeologist or you're not, but I assume you have docents as well, what's the best way for people to get involved?
Well, we certainly encourage anyone to come and visit our museums. There's where they can get that upfront view of all that Florida has to offer and all of this incredible history. And of course, we also, for those who love history and those who love archaeology, we would love for them to reach out to their legislative delegation and tell them what an important priority this is for our state.
So important, so important. All right, so when we think of elections, we think of conserving Florida's history. In your time at the department, what has been your, let's stick with the history, what's been your favorite artifact or your favorite thing to see as, because I'm sure they're always like, oh, come see this, like this is really cool. What's your favorite item or widget that you've seen that's under the care of the state?
Well, one of the most interesting collections we have comes from a shipwreck called the Maple Leaf. And the fascinating thing about the Maple Leaf is that when it sank, it went into the mud and created an anaerobic environment. So the objects that were down there were preserved incredibly well despite the passage of time. So we have those artifacts now in the Museum of Florida History.
Very exciting, very exciting. We're gonna have to come check all of that out. When you think about the policy, let's go back to the legislative conversation. When you hopefully get the support of the legislature, and obviously, the governor will sign it if and when it makes it out of there. What are you most hopeful for on the next election?
Well, I want to see the next election go much like we saw in 2020. We want a secure, accurate, timely election that Floridians can be confident in. So we're working hard to ensure that we continue to make those critical investments to carry forward the success that we saw in 2020. We also work very hard to ensure that voters know how to register to vote and the ways in which they can vote in Florida. So we have more options today for voters in Florida than ever before. And we're very proud of the fact that those options are also all very secure. So whether a voter chooses to vote in person, vote early, or vote by mail, each of those options are available for a voter, and each of them will be secure.
All right, so we've got a couple minutes left, and time is short, but we're grateful that you've come on. The one other thing that you guys do, which is amazing, is you help small businesses incorporate.
Yes.
What would you tell the next person who's thinking about starting their own business in Florida about the process of incorporation?
You're absolutely right. So we do have resources available for small businesses and for Floridians who are interested in creating new businesses in the Division of Corporations. So there again, on the department's website, we have resources, checklists, information about the types of businesses that someone might set up, which is right for them. Another program that I'll tell you about that we're very proud of at the department is Florida Main Street. And here we work with, mentor, and support historic downtowns who are interested in preserving that character and history of some of Florida's incredible communities. And our main streets and that program adds such a richness and character to communities across the state. I often say when I get to meet with Main Street business owners, of course they're providing a product or service, but this is the community where they live and raise their family. So they have a unique insight about the needs of the community, and they're so invested in its succeeding. So both from an economic perspective and a personal perspective, that Main Street program is a wonderful benefit to our communities.
Yeah. Well, Secretary Lee, thanks for all that you're doing in your leadership over at the department, and obviously thanks for Governor DeSantis in putting you there and having a great leader. We thank you for sharing all of this amazing work that's going on to ensure Florida's elections, ensuring our history is preserved, and ensuring our small business startup people have all the resources that we have. Just thank you very much.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to be here and share a little more about the department.
No, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. That's all the time we have for this episode of Phi TV. Make sure you hit us up on our social media feeds for more great interviews like this one. And for now, thanks for tuning in.